or the browser where you're using AHA slides, you can see the next question. And the next question is around, do you think Agile coaches deliver value? Do you think Agile coaches deliver value? Thank you. I see more people joining us. I've been notified that there has been a limit on the survey of 7 people only. And that's kind of confusing because we do not have a limit as such. Just give me a second. I'll try to fix it and then we can go forward. Thank you for joining, everybody. Thank you very much. We will be going to start our presentation. I'm just trying to gauge and understand your viewpoints on the overall Agile coaching. So I saw we have few Agile coaches, few senior leaders, few Scrum Masters. And then we also have few people who said, do you think Agile coaches deliver value? Some are saying yes frequently. Some of you are saying yes sometimes. Some of you are saying absolutely all the time. And yeah, so there are a few really good answers here. Thank you very much for that. So with that, what we will do is we will start our presentation and get into the crux of our point of view, what we are about to share today. And let's get going. All right. So let's get into some data or the facts around where do we see the coaching industry is overall, or the state of Agile coaching is. So what we have in as an industry or as a discipline, there is not a lot many resources available in the market where you can get the information around what is the state of Agile coaching from, and get details around Agile coaches in general. But there is a report published by Scrum Alliance in partnership with Business Agility Institute, State of Agile Coaching. I highly recommend you all to download this report. This is one of the very good resources that you can get, where the audience and participants are Agile coaches and the respective people who deal with Agile coaching as a function within organizations. So this is something that is very valuable for you to keep handy. The link is also available on the slide here, and we'll also be sharing the resources at the end of the presentation for you to take home with you as part of this. So the first question that I asked, where some of you responded that yes, does Agile coach deliver value? And the report confirms that most of the audience, they have confirmed that yes, they do deliver value. But in what sense? The value might be very different depending on what we and where we think Agile coaches are deployed. So 32% of them thinks that it's a mindset or cultural shifts. 20% thinks it's agility improvement. 12% thinks it's delivery improvement, and so on and so forth. Right. Then the second question is, okay, so how do you actually measure the success of an Agile coach? So is basically there are few who measures using OKR or KPIs. Sometimes it's performance reviews if the Agile coaches are the full-time employees of the organization. If it is contractors, which is the predominant case in the industry, is around OKRs and KPIs. Then sometimes it's around qualitative feedback. Sometimes they get specific Agile metrics like Agile maturity to show, demonstrate the trends around it. Sometimes it's around customer satisfaction, where they get feedback from the stakeholders. So you see a very diverse set of measures through which we measure these effectiveness or success of agile coaches. In spite of how they deliver the value or how we measure the value, then there is the third quadrant, which is basically what challenges agile coaches face in today's world. So obviously, there are difficulties in changing mindset and culture. That's number one. 39% of the agile coaches, they feel that there is this is the difficult nut to crack, the top one. Then 28% thinks the organizational structure, 18% think the resistance, and 11% thinks that the time that is allowed for transformation is not enough. I think 4% remote working or COVID-19. This is again last year's report, so we take that as a pinch of salt. Now that markets have opened, offices have opened, we are seeing a good hybrid working environment. So even if you discount that, then also a good number of people think culture, mind shift, leadership, and resistance to change are the key challenges that as a coach you face in the industry today when you work with different leaders, different clients, and so on and so forth. So what does all these coaches working on as agile coaches? Yeah, so you see most of the time it's about improving the delivery of a product or service, predominantly because most of the coaching still happens within the IT or in technology space. And that's why improving the delivery is one of the major components for that agile coaches works on. 28% actually works on the organizational transformation or changing the operating model of the organization. 17% is improving business processes. 11% is around coaching leaders and executives, and 8% is about improving software craftsmanship. Now, while these numbers tell you a lot about how do we measure success for an agile coach and what are the challenges agile coaches face and what are the coaches working on, we also need to understand the current market conditions that we are operating. So what we have tried to do as part of our research, we tried to look at the current landscape of the environment that we are working in. And what we understood and learned is, we are in a market situation where 63% of the leaders, they expect a global recession in 2023. Right? A lot of companies and leaders are expecting 91% of them expecting weak demand, and 87% of them are thinking about high cost of borrowing. That means the money is not coming easily this year. What does that mean? That means every business, whichever business you talk about, they are number one priority is to reduce cost by cutting their operating expenses. Number two priority is to reduce their cost in terms of reducing their headcount and optimizing supply chain, which is 77% of them. So if you see the top three kind of action items for leaders, right? Number one is cutting operational expenses, reducing headcount cost, optimizing supply, and optimizing delivery. So all in all, if you see, the investment appetite is low. Bottom line impact is expected from everybody, and that includes coaches as well. So the narrative that happens and goes around is around, okay, so if I do not have an agile coach, what will happen? Will my team still deliver? Will I be able to meet? Is it a cost that I should bear? Especially when the environment is very tough and the money is not flowing as easily as it was previously. And when you look at the landscape where things are happening or companies still need to invest and look at, so all the functions you talk about, business engineering, software engineering, innovation, IT operations, or business modeling, business improvements, all support functions like HR, compliance, finance, sustainability, or partner ecosystem. So no matter which particular area you pick, each area is going through this transformation because of the external forces, plus a renewed focus on what we call as, yes, make a bottom line impact. If you're not making a bottom line impact, then the question is, what is the value that you're bringing to the table? And this is the question that we are trying to answer by this point of view. So let us take a very real scenario, right? What happens when we talk about agile coaching and coaches in general? All right. So here is two leaders, business leader Bill, and then technology leader Jack. Right. So and then they are having a discussion. So business leader is talking to the technology leader that we have put a good amount for our agile coaching and training in our budget this year. All right. And Jake says, yes, we want to have an agile coach who can help us deliver faster and enable our team. So yeah, both the leaders agrees that, okay, let's put some budget and hire an agile coach. They hire an agile coach named Lucy. And few weeks later, they are having another discussion where business leader is saying, you know what, I met Lucy. She mentioned about some events and metrics and things that she is doing with team, but I'm not sure if I see any outcomes yet. And then the technology leader is explaining, yes, I echoed the same to Lucy. I see the foundation is all set, but we should see the results soon. All right. Then few weeks later, they are again talking about the same thing, that they are not seeing any outcomes. What about dependencies and blockers? Doesn't she work on them? And then the technology leader is saying, I hope Lucy to take it forward and discuss with respective people, and that is not happening. And what they conclude based on this is, oh, I think the coaching bit is not working. This is the most common scenario we have experienced over last 12 years, even before that. Because first thing is, leaders have a varied level of understanding, and they lack the clarity on what a role of a coach is. They think a coach will come with a silver wand and they will fix all their problems. And secondly, they do not have the patience to retain the experimental mindset. Whenever you put a pressure in terms of either delivery timelines or external pressures like such as this currently, which we are experiencing, they generally go back to what they know best. That means put a deadline, try to see if things are working. If not, let's get somebody else to do it. Right. So that's what you're seeing in this. Now, the discussions with the coach and the technology leader is no different, right? Where the technology leader is asking, okay, hey, you have been working on this for a few weeks now. I'm not able to see any results. What is happening? And the coach is explaining, you know what? There are some fundamental changes that we need to make, and it will take few more weeks. It's not so easy to make those behavioral or mindset shifts. All okay. But and then the leader thinks that the events and ceremonies are happening, but why we are not delivering fast enough? Everybody is doing a stand-up retrospective planning, but we are not fast enough still. And then the coach is explaining, what, in our environment we have a lot of dependencies, and our processes are very traditional, which is not within the perimeter of the team. We have to talk to the external leaders. Okay, so why are you not working with the external leaders? Okay, because this requires senior leadership's intervention and making decision. I'm not able to find leaders taking that ownership. And that's where they think, okay, I don't think this coaching bit is working because I was expecting you to take lead on this. Right. So again, the culture and mindset that we want from leaders is not coming out in the organizations very clearly. And you might have experienced this already, especially those who are coaches, or if even if you're not, then also you might have seen that whether it is a technical leader or business leader, generally the discussions are very much on the similar line, right? Because they follow a very traditional hierarchy. There is always delivery pressure, and there is very low or little time allocated for learning and maturing the agile behaviors and agile practices. So all in all, agility gets left behind. And then we always try to say, what, the coaches are not delivering results, but the real problem might be somewhere else. All right. So the quick question is, what are some of these challenges that we see in our ecosystem that the agile coaches are working on day in and day out, right? So we see that, our ecosystem continues to resist change, and we have greater difficulty in sustaining the change. So some of the things I already talked about. One of the things that as agile coaches we face a lot is around every new leader sets a new course, and that voids a lot of efforts done previously. So what happens, the leadership transition, when a new leader joins, he or she thinks that their way is the best way, and they think that whatever has been done so far needs to be either renamed, repurposed, or reset so we can go faster. It voids all the previous efforts, and that's why every reset makes transformation harder, because people will go through this change fatigue again and again. Instead of giving them time to learn, adjust, and sustain, we ask them to relearn, forget, relearn, unlearn, forget, and do something new. And that cycle does not result into any productivity, and it just sets the transformation fatigue. So these are some of the challenges that we see on many a times in our environment that our coaches have been facing. Now, let's introspect a little bit more. When we talk about coaches, where and from which particular area they are coming, who are the people who are playing the role of coaches, right? And there are some interesting insights that came out from the same report, the state of agility, where you see that the patterns that tell us is 85% of the agile coaches that we have currently, they have less than 3 years of experience in as an agile coach. So that also tells us that the domain of agile coaching is very new in a infancy state. So a lot of the things that we are learning, we are exploring, we are trying to understand, goes in parallel with how we are also trying to experiment it by applying it in the context. So there is, again, time takes the precedence here, right? So if you do not allow the time to kind of go through the change to settle and the change to actually get implemented, then what you are doing is essentially you are fast tracking things which can't be fast tracked, like behavioral change, the changes that these coaches are trying to drive, right? So that's number one thing, that the overall experience that these coaches have is between 1 to 3 years or less than 3 years. That makes it a very unique composition for the coaches to play that role. The second is, like I was telling, mastering agility takes time, right? So if you see, there are only few companies who have been continuing their agile journeys beyond 6 years. And those who have done that, they understand the value of coaching, they understand the value a coach brings to the table, as opposed to somebody who have just started or have been in the journey for 1 to 3 years. This is the most, I would say, dynamic space from less than 1 year to 1 to 3 year, where most of these changes happen, where a lot of cross questioning and validation is required for the way of working, for the agility, for the value of agile, and so on and so forth, right? So you will see all this noise in this particular segment, where people have been doing it for a few years, only 1 to 3 years, and they haven't tested the success yet, or tested the success only in pockets. People who have committed it for more than 6 years, they have kind of understood it, they have internalized it, and now they know that this is their path to go. So agile becomes BAU for them, and they understand the values that the coaches bring in on the table. Now, in the industry, there are different coaches titles, there are different styles and different applications, right? So you have life coaches, you have executive coaches who are into leadership coaching, executive coaching. You have team coaches who are working with the teams, or multi-team or program coaches who are working with teams or programs. You have product coach, you have business coach, you have enterprise coach. Now, not every coach can do everything. Depending on the problem you are trying to solve, you might want to engage a different type of coach, because the application of the knowledge might be different, right? Like the team coach is really looking at the team to make sure they are getting into high performance. A program coach is looking at multiple teams and making sure the program is delivering the outcome by looking at dependencies, looking at the overall planning of the program, and so on and so forth. So depending on where the coach is involved, the outcomes that they drive and the style they adopt to drive that outcome might be very different. Now, the last but not the least is we have to also understand that every leader, when we talk about coaching, every leader have to behave like a coach, especially in the modern context where we are talking about psychological safety, we are talking about employee satisfaction and employee engagement and happiness, where we are talking about servant leadership or true leadership and authentic leadership and adaptive leadership. So we expect each of the leader to act as a coach. At the same time, are we do we expect or give the right boundaries for agile coaches to work as a leader or become a leader? So the answer in many scenarios is no, because there is no authority provided to the coaches. Their pure play work is creating and working through influence, working through impact, or working with the help of their craft and navigating the landscape through without any authority or command or control. And that's where some of the challenges again surface again and again, where we see that where we believe that it has to be combination of both craft and competency, coaching and leadership together to generate outcomes. So this is the current kind of a spectrum of agile coaching and competency, like what I wanted to showcase. So to establish two things, one is what is happening and perceived outside, and what is happening within the industry, and as agile coach where we see things are evolving. Now, does that mean that we don't have any demand for agile coaches and everything is doomed? There is no tomorrow for agile coaches and we just need to do something else? The answer is no. Because again, how we see it is, there are so many job roles. There are so many companies who are going through their agile journey, and every company is at a different level of maturity at their different life cycles. So you saw only 28% of the companies were on their journey more than 6 years, but the remaining 72% of the company are still there less than 1 year to 5 year range. And in those companies, we still have a lot of demand for agile coaches. And those who have done it more than 6 years, they have established their own COEs or own agile coaching competency within the organization. But they do also have demand for agile coaches and scrum masters and the agile roles that we are talking about. So taking one event like the Capital One into account and thinking that suddenly the role of agile coaches are no more there is going too far, right? So that's number one. Number two is we see that the demand has been continuously growing, and the demand, there is still way to go forward. But will it continue to grow beyond the next 2-3 years? Only time will tell. So as we can see that market conditions are not something that will leave any enabler role on its own unless they change their way of operating. And what is that change that we are talking about for agile coaches or any enabler role like a scrum master? What should they be doing or where should they be focusing? So there are two aspects to this question again, right? So if I'm a supplier or a provider or a vendor who is working in the industry and who is providing agile coaches or scrum masters, my questions will be very different than the questions that the clients ask, right? So the questions that I might ask is, how should we show value of the agile coaches? If I'm a provider and I'm approaching a new client for agile coaching, what I am basically worried about is how should we show value of the agile coaches that we have? What should we do with the agile coaches that we have got? How can we enable them? How can we evolve them forward? What they can learn today to, number one, navigate the current scenario of the market situation, and also understand and grow together towards something that they can generate meaningful outcomes. That's a suppliers or providers view. If I'm a client who is hiring agile coaches or scrum masters, or who has already hired and have these roles on their payroll or on their role. The key questions for us is, do we need agile coaches? That's number one. What should we do with them? Who we got? Or what value agile coaches bring to the table? Right. And in many scenarios and many a times we feel that leaders do not understand the value that agile coaches bring to the table, because all the the softer elements or the elements which creates the bond between a team, which creates the glue between the teams and the programs and between programs and the enterprise, it generally goes unnoticed. So again, both sides valid questions, but I think if you look at the key internal message, the key item is, how can, as an agile coach, I, number one, bring in more visibility of the work that we are doing, more outcomes that we can contribute to directly rather than indirect, and more working with the team. So this is where we have a point of view, and what we call it, instead of enabling value, you need to go towards engineering value. Right? And one of the best way to demonstrate value is through outcomes. As a coach, one must shift the focus from enabling to engineering. That's where true outcome happens. And how do you do from enabling to engineering? By doing it along with the team, by co-creating it with them, right? So if you are looking at our current coaching paradigm and current work that most of our coaching cohort does, they are around tell and show. Right. What we want to shift to is to tell, show, and do. That means you are actually co-creating the value with the team, with the program, with the leaders. And that engagement as a hands-on coach with the leadership is what value engineering is all about. Now, when you hear this term value engineering, you might think that this is something related to tech, or is it just a technology thing? The answer is no, because value engineering is a process, right? So let's distill this a little bit more. Right? What we mean is, it is a discipline to influence individuals, teams, and organizations to deliver impactful outcomes through craft and competency. Right? Let me repeat that. So what we mean by value engineering is the discipline to influence individuals, teams, and organizations to deliver impactful outcomes through craft and competency. Now, these four dimensions of value engineering are there, which we feel is very, very important for any coach or any enabler to take on. Right. So number one is craft, which is essential. Without your craft, you are playing blind. So in order for you to really work towards achieving business outcomes, you need to have the right craft. So skill, knowledge, and experience required to deliver outcomes. That's your craft. Competency, capability to apply or use the set of related knowledge, skills, and abilities. Number three is influence, the ability to influence outcomes through thought leadership and industry insights. Number four is the impact, the ability to deliver outcomes as a result of engagement and collaboration. So these four dimensions, when combined together, makes the value engineer tick, or value engineering tick. Now, if you see what is a craft, now your craft as an agile coach is about coaching, facilitation, training, leadership, and consulting. Right. So if you see, these are the skills, knowledge, and experience required to deliver outcomes. Right. So as a coach, the coaching techniques that you use to elicit information from teams or leaders, the coaching techniques that you use to motivate people, to influence people, the consulting techniques that you use to derive solutions, to come to a point with the respective teams, facilitation, training, and leadership, right? So this is your craft. This is the first dimension. Now we talk about competency. This is where we see a lot of shift and change that as a coach one need to make. So capability to apply or use the set of related knowledge, skills and abilities. So you might want to take a look at, which particular thing that you are, which particular competency you are really passionate about, right? Some of the competencies are not just critical, but they are essential. For example, knowledge of lean and agile frameworks, practices and tools. So that is something that is given as a coach. You must have that knowledge of system thinking so that you can apply the broader system perspective to the problems and challenges that is being thrown at the team or at the program to solve. So you can basically do something at from an end-to-end perspective. The next one is business sense making. This is where a lot of coaches struggle, in my view, and I have seen this happen. If you're too bogged down around just the framework and the language of agility and the practices and tools, you generally forget for what we are actually doing this. And this is where the business sense making comes into play, where you can apply this to actually solve a business problem, to actually understand whether it makes sense from a business perspective or not. And the moment you do that, that's where you have directly aligned outcomes. The remaining two-bit software lifecycle and product development is very much important if you are coaching technology teams or technology domains. It is also essential nowadays when we say that every company is a software company. Now, as a competency, do you need to have the in-depth knowledge of this? Yes, if you are doing and coaching technology teams, but if you're not, and if you are into a non-tech or non-IT area, having a broader knowledge of this will help you achieve better solutions and better outcomes. The next bit is influence. Now, this is something that is very intangible, and a lot of coaches they focus more on creating a social image. And you see a lot of coaches who are very active on LinkedIn. You see a lot of coaches who are regular speakers at events, and so on and so forth. Their contents are reused by multiple people. Their thought process, their ideas have been implemented by multiple people. But as a coach, it is really important to kind of have number one commitments to give back to community, because whatever work you are doing, if you do not propagate the knowledge forward, you are making yourself as a blocker. And one of the things as a coach, which I always talk to my team and to other coaches, is to make sure that you are making yourself redundant from the work that you have done at present. That means once you have done it with the team for doing the same work, they should not need you. You need to move on to the next high value work with the same team. It's when I say making yourself redundant, I'm not asking you to leave your job and go somewhere else. Making yourself redundant is about doing the right work and moving on to the next high value worth work. That's what I mean. And by doing the influence, right? Because influence is such an indirect reference here, an indirect element that you have to do and get visibility across from the social community that you work with, your own community within your enterprise, and also ensure that there is enough coverage across. And the last but not the least is the impact. Understand which outcome you are delivering as part of your engagement, right? Is it business value, and how to qualify that business value? Is it culture change, cultural transformation, or impact on culture? How are you going to again demonstrate that impact? Is it ways of working where you are involving changing practices and processes and tools and making efficiency gains? Or is it technical excellence where you are bringing in excellence to look at multiple technical optimization? So this is a very easy to understand thing, but very hard to do thing, because when as a coach you go in, most of the time you do not have the clear visibility of the business outcome. So the illustration that I have shown where two business leaders are talking about, hey, we have put some budget for an agile coach. When you are joining that particular group or organization, the first thing you should be asking is, okay, what is the business value that you are trying to achieve through me? That's one of the antipatents that we see in the industry. Coaches do not ask that question often and do not get the clarity upfront from the business stakeholder in terms of what we are trying to achieve. Doing a training, doing a workshop is not an answer to all the things that is a problem. It is always important to understand the context, the expectation, and the outcomes, what we are trying to drive. And that's what the impact we are talking about. So these are the four dimensions. Let's put them together. So this is how value engineering in one single shot looks. Okay. Four items: craft, competency, influence, and impact. So the discipline to influence individuals, teams, and organizations to deliver impactful outcomes through craft and competency. This is what value engineering is, right? So I have run through all the elements. When you look at in single circle, you might feel overwhelmed, but this is not to overwhelm you. This is to just make sure that in a single shot you understand what it is. By craft, what do you mean? By influence, what do you mean? By competency, what do you mean? And by impact, what do you mean? When you combine all these things, that's when you are actually delivering value. So now coming back to the exam question, right? Does it only apply to IT, value engineering? Does it only apply to technology work? The answer is no. The answer is it is broadly applicable to the entire landscape that we looked at. You can apply value engineering as part of your business engineering, software engineering, your innovation, your sustainability, your IT operations, your partner ecosystem, anywhere. Any field or any landscape you choose, you can apply value engineering there. So it can be applied across the landscape to all the different elements. Now, the key question you might have is, okay, so then how do I start with value engineering? What you want me to do? As a coach, I already know some of it. I'm already in the known of consulting, coaching, system thinking, this and that, right? So you are just basically, combining them together and calling it value engineering. Is it the case? So what we have here is so there are two things that we can do. So one is, as a coach, you can continue to adopt and learn. That's basically understand the domain of value engineering, understand where are the gaps. You can assess yourself on those four discipline or dimensions and pinpoint which area you want to focus more on, right? Preferably impact for this year, and also the influence, how you can do the impact and influence together if you're a coach and you want to really make an impact and look forward to have this as a career option for a longer term. The other option is you can evolve towards value engineering roles, right? So we have a strong view that more and more the role of coach will become embedded within teams. We will go towards the sports kind of method where the coach is directly responsible for team's performance, and that embedding of a coach within the team will happen more and more as we are navigating this critical business juncture, right? So we are at a pivotal moment of our industry, and our view is that the coaching will shift and evolve towards value engineering roles. What are those roles? So we call them value engineering roles. So there is a value engineering lead, and then there is a hierarchy where all these four areas that we talked about today, the four dimensions. Depending on which role you play, you have varied level of maturity, progressive accountability, and expectation. So like for example, craft, for a value engineering lead who is working with one team or multiple teams, your craft is about maybe facilitation, looking at stitching together the dependencies, stitching together the overall planning process and working with the leadership to make sure the risks are contained, you are prioritizing rightly and correctly, and so on and so forth. As opposed to a value engineering director who is directly looking at the entire P&L, working with the leaders, asking optimization questions, working with them to actually going through the optimization process and then coming together and co-creating that solution. So again, how and what and when, there is a lot to talk here on this slide, but overall what I wanted to communicate by this slide is that it is basically progressive accountabilities and expectations for these roles. Now the key question is, oh, so should I change my title from agile coach to value engineering lead? So that's why I showed you the previous slide that you don't have to right now, but there is a point when you need to make that call, right? Because if every day you are going and hearing this question around, hey, does agile coaches bring value, at some point you will also have a time when you are feeling down about it and you no more want to fight the perception that we do not bring a value on the table. So I think that's where this makes it very clear and very, I would say, direct that what we are basically engineering the value for the organization, and we are leading it. So we are leading the effort by embedding ourselves in the teams. So that's why I feel that the shift is the preferred approach for me going forward. Now, there was, a quick reference to how does it basically, work with the latest innovations happening in AI, and everybody is talking about will it replace Scrum Master like ChatGPT, and there are so many other tools and so on and so forth. Right. The secret is that nobody knows for sure what will happen. Right. But here are our predictions. Right. So what we think, whether you are continuing as a coach, not changing any title, but learning all these value engineering disciplines and dimensions, or whether you're shifting to the value engineering, no matter where you are, in the immediate 3 to 6 months kind of terms, what we see is the chat GPT and the other AI tools will be basically about content, will be basically about, the general knowledge that is available around events and activities, general tracking, automation of mundane tasks, and getting used to, right? So that because everybody is figuring this out, you might as a coach will get questions which is generated by chat GPT or which is generated based on the knowledge that they got from chat GPT, right? So there will be a lot of this happening in next 3 to 6 months where people are exploring this tool, and people are also getting smarter and having access to the information that previously they didn't have. Shorter term, 7 to 18 months, we feel that it will be less and less about content and more about context and situation, where people will be using this tool to simulate scenarios, ask specific questions on use cases, and so on and so forth. However, when they do so, they will still need somebody to validate that information and validate that use case. So the people part of it, where you have human conversations, problem solving, and decision making, ChatGPT or any other AI tool will not be able to replace it. That is something that we should be leveraging as agile coaches and coaching community, that this is something that we bring to the table. Human conversations, problem solving with a group of people, and making it real for human beings, I think, and going through the decision making process, right? So that is what we feel that is something that is in short term. For midterm, we will see that there will be a decline of use cases for chat GPT, and it will be more and more complex use cases that people want to run it. People will at one point will get fed up with asking those what if scenarios or these generic questions about tell me what will happen kind of scenarios, especially in the business context I'm talking. On personally, you can still go and play around it like a toy on a daily basis. That doesn't stop us. But from a business perspective, meaningful use cases and scenarios, we will see that getting less and less. However, demand for specialized skill and solutions may increase, because all this chat GPT knowledge that now is part of everybody's knowledge base, they will come and ask questions which will require us to up our game as well. So as a coach, our job is going to get difficult, will not be replaced. You are supposed to experiment and learn about these tools as much as possible, and also help others learn these tools to increase the productivity and efficiency. So as an agile coach, my sincere recommendation is use this tool as your ally or friend to drive outcomes. Last but not the least, what I would like to kind of highlight is we talked about the value engineering discipline today and how the value engineering leadership works. So especially if you are into if you're a vendor or agency or a provider who supplies agile coaching, scrum masters, or any enabler roles, we have this program that we are experimenting with few more SIs at this point in time. I cannot reveal the name, but what we are seeing in the market is, a lot of people, a lot of agile coaches and scrum masters who are basically uh, not able to find another engagement, or not able to renew their contracts, or not able to get to a point where they need to. This program definitely is aimed at helping those. We have very, very practical scenarios done through this course, which is a 2-day course, which we are offering to only SIs, providers and agencies at this point in time, because this is not open for the individual coaches yet. So in your company, if you want to experiment with this course, we will be happy to run this course for you. What we do in this course, it's pretty pragmatic course where we come in, we talk about all those four dimensions of value engineering. At the same time, we give you a full toolbox to apply this in your context. So when you are going through an engagement with your client as a coach, you have all the material required, or you are going on a value engineering leader. As a value engineering leader, you have all the material to help your client grow, help prove your value, help prove your outcomes in a meaningful way to your leadership. So with that, I will stop. Thank you for listening to our point of view on how agile coaching needs to evolve, where it needs to go. And now I'll pause for any questions you might have for me. Let's get going here. All right, you can type into the LinkedIn feed, or you can use again the AHA slides, same link, same URL. You can post your questions out there, and I would be happy to answer if you have any questions for me. Alternately, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. You can reach out to us on info@massiveview.com, or you can reach out to any of our team members on LinkedIn, like Jason, or Shreyas, Harika, or our coaches, Balaji, Shriyarsha. They're also here on the call. Thank you very much once again. Let me know if you have questions. I will pause now. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris, for your comment. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you, Anand, for your comment. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. What should we do to get the value engineering discussion with leadership? Um, this is a very interesting question. Thank you for putting this, whoever has dropped it, because it is anonymous, so I do not know who put it. So thank you very much for the question. See, number one is when you're talking to your leaders, I think this is a common question nowadays around what value does agile coaches bring to the table. I think as agile coach, if you can go into a direction where you can create and make awareness around value engineering, where you can talk about the craft, competency, influence, and impact, most of the leaders will get it at the first time. You do not need to then re-educate or re-talk about what value engineering is all about. So adding it to your tool bucket or list of tools that you want to talk at will definitely help. This is something that we have seen in practice also, where we are talking to multiple different CXOs, and then they get the value engineering concept very quickly. They do not get the agile coaching concept very easily because they still think agile coaching means just agile practices and behaviors and methods. But when you talk about value engineering, you see a broader understanding across the board. So thank you for putting this. Yes, it's easy to get through. You need to start with those 4 dimensions that we have and talk with them, and then bring it to value engineering. That will help you out in terms of getting it through the leadership. All right. If there is nothing else, then we will save you the last minute for the webinar. Thank you very much for your time today, everybody. I really appreciate. And with that, we will, like to just show if you are, interested in getting in touch with us. Here are our details. You can get in touch with us on our phone. You can also send a message, or you can visit our website, or you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. So all are welcome. Thank you very much once again. Have a good day and take care.